when I brought up this, because the reason why I brought up the Kinect is not because I particularly wanted to delve into its inner workings. However, there are people that do. And there's a company called Adafruit Industries who's offered a bounty. I think you've read this article as well, Roy.
I have, yeah.
A couple of £1,000 for somebody to write open source drivers for the Kinect technology to work on other platforms. It's evoked an angry response, allegedly, from Microsoft, which I can quote here. Microsoft will continue to make advances in these types of safeguards, referring to the preventing of these drivers being written, and work closely with law enforcement and product safety groups to keep Kinect tamper resistant. So, just if you have any comments about this story at all before I move on.
Yeah, I think it was pretty fake. The first thing one person posted this in the IRC channels we operate, and I thought it was fake at first, but the way they phrase it, it's a bit interesting. One way to look at it is Microsoft is trying to prevent people from doing what they want with their own devices, which is a kind of an Apple type behavior, and always a very controversial thing. It shows you that the companies are very draconian and all that. The reason I think it's fake depends on the price. I'm not sure. The last time I was reading Microsoft news closely, I haven't been doing this for about a month now, the price was not yet very much finalized. I think it was like $150. And the reason it matters is because you want to know if they lose per sale, if they lose for each sale made, for the sake of regaining the missing money from games and such things, because Microsoft gets royalty on these things. So I don't really know how much it costs to make these controllers, and I don't know how much they sell it for. But at this early stage, there are two things that might happen. One thing that's possible is that Microsoft has a limited supply of these because they cannot manufacture them fast enough before it's officially released. Not that I imply that lots of people will necessarily buy them, and they don't want the fake customers to buy them, to pick them up. They don't want people to just basically buy these things to play flight simulators on Linux, and then everyone else is going to be left out in the cold. After a period of time, you do want people to buy these things for two reasons. One of them, you actually make a profit by selling them, unless you sell it at a loss. The second thing is you tell game makers about the number of people who have these controllers, and this allows you to attract the game makers, the developers type thing. It allows you to brag about higher numbers because they try to target the biggest audience. And that's what happened with Xbox 360 or Xbox at the time. People say, well, just buy one or get one and put Linux on it. But the truth is, you don't actually hurt Microsoft. You actually help them in the sense that you buy one of their units, and it allows them to get more game makers to target the Xbox or the Xbox 360. They don't really know what's installed on it. So I think there is a two-side. It depends on the price. You can find out more by knowing how much it costs. You have all these experts who can break down and look at the components and tell that this diode and this camera is costing this and that, and they do the sum, and they can give you a pretty precise estimate of the cost. I don't know about the cost, and I know it's because it's very new. It's really bad for Microsoft. Lots of people buy it for the wrong purpose. Yeah.
I think the statements made from Microsoft, regardless of whether the actual story itself is a hoax or whatever, were quite interesting, because Microsoft does not condone the modification of its products. Well, unless I'm missing something here, if I get one of these Kinects and write myself an open source driver for it, release that to the net, and then plug it into my PC, I'm not actually modifying anything. I'm literally just plugging it into a different device than the one it was intended. The other thing I don't like about the statement that they released is the work closely with law enforcement. Unless I'm hideously wrong, under the Compute Misuse Act, there is no legislation that covers writing an open source driver for a motion sensing device, and I'll stand to be corrected. But I don't like the way that the press release was worded, because obviously people read that and think, oh crikey, step back from it. When you buy something, shouldn't you be able to do with as you will the purchase you've made? And I think
there's lots of core precedents around that, and the most recent I can think about is Texas Instruments and the calculators. I'm not sure if you've read about it, but there were quite a few articles about Texas Instruments going after people who modify the calculators. And you'd think, they sell the calculators, they shouldn't really mind, but I think one of the things that they fear, and Nokia had a similar situation with Memo, the platform, is that they are afraid of the developer basically leapfrogging the original maker. So one of the things with Microsoft that may happen is that more people will use a modified, supposedly improved version of the Kinect, and maybe even do cheats for games, all kinds of modes, and in the case of I'm trying to think how you would fool the camera to do something which in a network game would give you advantage, but I suppose that can happen in the future. Another thing was with Creative Labs, I think, makers of Sound Blaster and all that. They were going after a developer who actually improved their drivers. I'm not sure if it was just for Vista, but he wrote a better driver than theirs, and it became extremely popular. I think it got like hundreds of thousands of people downloading the driver. And one of the reasons they want to go after him is because he gets more important than he becomes a bigger authority than the company, and then it gives him a lot of power to do also malicious things. So one of the things he could do is future release, he could do something that's not supposed to happen, or he could basically fry people's sound cards, and the company has no control over what he's doing, basically. So that it has a legitimate side to it. They don't really want to be the secondary source for updates for systems and things like that. It happens in all sorts of places. It happens even in with companies that sell you Linux, but I'm not sure what the reasoning is in this case. I'm not sure why they.
Yeah, I mean, I think I resented the comment mainly because when you mention the word law enforcement, it suggests criminal. Now, in regards to any sort of civil claim they want to pursue, obviously that's taken on its merits at the time, whatever they're claiming. But what I don't like is the word law enforcement used to imply criminality when using one of these things as you wish. Like I say, if somebody wants to email me with relevant legislation that contradicts what I'm saying, I'd love to hear from you. But certainly in the UK, I can get one of these Kinects and I could do anything I like with it. There's no criminal legislation to cover that.
There was a controversial case with Apple. And I think the name of the guy from, was it Gawker? The Gawker Media is the company, and the site was, I'm not sure it was Engadget, was it? No, it was Gizmodo. Which was the website. It was one of the editors, Chen. He was pursued by the police, I think, somewhere in California. And it was Apple who basically turned out to be the party to use the police as a kind of a private law enforcement type of company to basically go to his house, raid all these things. You might think, what's the guy's crime? Well, the guy's supposed crime is that he got hold of a phone that was basically a prototype of the company, and he wasn't doing it illegally. He basically either bought it or he claimed that he found it in a bar, but it doesn't really matter. It's like raiding a person's house because he's got hold of a phone, not even stole it. It's just ridiculous. And eventually they actually withdrew because they got all this bad publicity, which I think they deserve, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult subject, and of course, when we're reading these things from thousands of miles away on a web page, you never know the full ins and outs of these cases. Certainly, my take on the Apple phone itself was more of a case that if there was law enforcement involved, it was looking at it from an angle of handling stolen goods, theft of a phone, that type of allegation, not per se that it was a prototype Apple phone itself. What I think, like I say, what worries me is the inference that's that's made, in my opinion, from this statement, that there is some criminality involved in modifying your own items, things that you've purchased. And maybe this highlights the whole benefit of free and open source software. When you have this